Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I want to talk about something that might feel a little uncomfortable. It's a subject that many of us avoid because, well, it's easier to keep the peace than to rock the boat. But I believe it's time we stop being nice to men in the way society has conditioned us to. People-pleasing is a behavior that many of us are taught from a young age, whether consciously or unconsciously. It's embedded in our social and cultural conditioning, especially for women, where being agreeable, accommodating, and nice is often seen as a virtue. But what happens when we prioritize the comfort of others over our own emotional needs? The price of people-pleasing is steep, and it's something we often don't recognize until we've already paid the cost. At its core, people-pleasing is about seeking external validation. It's a way to avoid conflict, to keep things smooth, and to ensure that others approve of us. When we focus on pleasing people, we become hyper-aware of their needs, opinions, and emotions, often at the expense of our own. Over time, this leads to the erosion of our sense of self. We become disconnected from who we really are because we're constantly adjusting ourselves to meet the expectations of others. Our worth becomes dependent on how well we're able to meet their needs rather than on our intrinsic value. One of the most insidious aspects of people-pleasing is that it often feels like a good thing. After all, who doesn't want to be liked and accepted? Who wouldn't want to avoid tension or uncomfortable situations? The problem arises when this behavior becomes a pattern, when we go to great lengths to please others, often to the point where we neglect our own desires, needs, and boundaries. At first, this might seem like a small sacrifice. But over time, it takes a heavy toll. We begin to feel exhausted, resentful, and eventually disconnected from ourselves. People-pleasing also feeds into a cycle of insecurity. When we base our self-worth on others' approval, we are giving away our power. We are putting our emotional well-being in the hands of others, hoping that their validation will give us the sense of self-acceptance we crave. But this is a trap. No amount of praise or approval from others can fill the emptiness that comes from not accepting ourselves. The more we try to please others, the more we realize that their approval is never enough. It's like chasing an unattainable goal, one that leaves us perpetually dissatisfied. Another hidden cost of people-pleasing is the impact it has on our relationships. When we consistently put others' needs before our own, we may start to feel resentful or taken advantage of. We suppress our true feelings, pretending everything is fine while quietly harboring frustrations. This builds emotional distance in relationships because at a deep level, others can sense that something is out of alignment. We may be giving, but we're not being truly authentic. Over time, this lack of authenticity erodes trust and connection, and the relationship becomes superficial. People-pleasing also reinforces unhealthy power dynamics. When we constantly prioritize the comfort of others over our own, we send the message that their feelings are more important than ours. In the case of gender dynamics, this can be particularly damaging. Women, for instance, are often socialized to be nice, to take up less space, and to keep things harmonious, even when it means suppressing their own needs. This creates an environment where men may never learn to fully understand women's perspectives or needs because women are not expressing them. It perpetuates a culture of inequality, where emotional labor falls disproportionately on one gender, leaving the other to remain unaware or uninvolved in the emotional work necessary for mutual respect. At a deeper level, people-pleasing creates a disconnection between our actions and our values. We are constantly adjusting ourselves to fit into other people's expectations, which means we often act in ways that are not in alignment with who we truly are. This misalignment can cause feelings of inner conflict and discomfort. We may start to feel like we're living a life that's not ours, like we're playing a role in someone else's story rather than writing our own. The ultimate price of people-pleasing is the loss of our own sense of self. We lose sight of our needs, desires, and values in our quest for external approval. And while seeking validation from others may seem harmless at first, over time it chips away at our confidence, self-worth, and authenticity. The longer we engage in people-pleasing, the harder it becomes to reclaim our true selves. We become disconnected from our inner voice and may struggle to even know what we really want out of life. Reclaiming our authenticity and learning to prioritize our own emotional health is an act of self-compassion. And it requires the courage to stop being nice in the way society has conditioned us to be, and to start showing up as our full, authentic selves. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as a weakness, especially in a society that prizes strength, independence, and invulnerability. We're taught from an early age to toughen up, to keep our emotions in check, and to hide any signs of discomfort or fear. This cultural message, deeply ingrained in many of us, suggests that showing vulnerability means admitting defeat, that it signals a lack of control or resilience. But the truth is that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is the most powerful and courageous act we can engage in. In fact, vulnerability is the foundation of connection, growth, and true strength. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are acknowledging our humanity. We're saying, I don't have all the answers. I am not perfect. And that's okay. This willingness to expose our imperfections, fears, and uncertainties allows us to connect with others in authentic ways. It's through vulnerability that we create deeper relationships, both with ourselves and with others. Vulnerability is the emotional risk we take when we allow ourselves to be seen as we truly are, without the armor we usually wear to protect ourselves from judgment or rejection. It's a way of saying, I trust you enough to show you my whole self, and I hope you will do the same. The real danger lies not in vulnerability, but in the avoidance of it. When we suppress our emotions, hide our struggles, or deny our needs, we are effectively cutting ourselves off from meaningful connection. By pretending that we have everything together, we build walls around ourselves. These walls keep us isolated and alone, unable to experience the richness of human connection that comes from true authenticity. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is the antidote to loneliness. It opens the door to genuine empathy and understanding, allowing us to forge connections that go beyond surface-level interactions. In many ways, vulnerability is the birthplace of courage. It takes far more strength to show up and be vulnerable than to hide behind a facade of perfection or invincibility. Vulnerability is about having the courage to face our own discomfort, to sit with our fears, and to be honest about our feelings. It is the act of being seen without the need for approval. And that requires a profound sense of self-worth. The more we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, the more we cultivate inner resilience and emotional strength. It's in these moments of exposure, when we're at our most vulnerable, that we tap into a deeper well of courage that allows us to keep moving forward despite our fears. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in our growth and transformation. When we open ourselves up to vulnerability, we allow ourselves to experience new things, take risks, and learn from our mistakes. Growth cannot happen in a state of perfectionism or emotional suppression. It occurs when we dare to step into the unknown, when we allow ourselves to fail, to be uncomfortable, and to stumble along the way. Embracing vulnerability allows us to accept the process of becoming without the need for immediate results or validation. It teaches us that our worth is not tied to our success or failure, but to our willingness to be fully present in the experience. In relationships, vulnerability fosters trust. When we show up authentically and share our true selves, it invites others to do the same. It creates a safe space where both parties can express their fears, hopes, and dreams without fear of judgment or rejection. Vulnerability encourages open communication, emotional intimacy, and mutual understanding. It's through these vulnerable exchanges that relationships deepen and evolve. Without vulnerability, we are left with shallow connections that are based on pretense and fear rather than mutual respect and trust. Moreover, vulnerability is not a one-time act, but a continual practice. It requires us to let go of the need for control, to be willing to face discomfort, and to trust that showing up authentically will lead to more meaningful experiences. It's a muscle that gets stronger the more we use it. The more we practice vulnerability, the more we are able to embrace uncertainty and face our fears with courage. It is through this ongoing process of vulnerability that we unlock our true potential and cultivate a life that is rich with connection, growth, and authenticity. In the end, vulnerability is not weakness. It is the essence of what makes us human. It is the courage to be seen, to be imperfect, and to embrace the fullness of our experiences. When we let go of the myth that vulnerability is something to be feared, we step into a place of true power, one that is grounded in authenticity, connection, and strength. Vulnerability is the doorway to living a life that is not only meaningful, but deeply connected to others, and most importantly, to ourselves. Unchallenged norms shape much of the way we live our lives, often without us even realizing it. These norms are the invisible rules, expectations, and behaviors that society has set, often from long-held traditions or cultural assumptions that dictate how we should think, feel, and act. While some norms may serve a purpose in creating order or unity, many others are harmful, limiting our potential and perpetuating inequality. The harm of unchallenged norms becomes especially apparent when these invisible rules go unquestioned, creating cycles of injustice, oppression, and personal suffering. When we accept norms without questioning them, we are often reinforcing structures that work to maintain the status quo, even when that status quo is harmful or outdated. One example of this can be seen in the traditional gender norms that define how men and women should behave. Men are often conditioned to be stoic, dominant, and emotionless, while women are expected to be nurturing, deferential, and accommodating. These norms confine people to narrow boxes that don't allow for the full expression of their humanity. When individuals fail to conform to these norms, they are labeled as deviant, weak, or undesirable. This creates unnecessary suffering for both men and women, as they are denied the opportunity to express themselves authentically. For example, the societal expectation that men should suppress emotions like sadness or fear in favor of displaying strength and dominance perpetuates harmful mental health outcomes. Men are less likely to seek help when they are struggling emotionally, fearing that vulnerability will make them appear weak. This perpetuates a culture of silence around mental health struggles and fosters a sense of isolation, leading to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and even suicide among men. These unchallenged norms don't just harm men, they harm everyone. Women, too, are affected by these expectations. They are expected to play the role of caretaker, suppressing their own needs and desires to prioritize others. When women attempt to break free from this mold by prioritizing their careers, expressing anger, or simply asserting their boundaries, they are often labeled as bossy or unlikable. In addition to gender norms, unchallenged cultural and societal expectations related to race, class, and sexuality also create systemic harm. For instance, norms around race often promote biases and stereotypes that marginalize people of color. These biases manifest in ways that affect hiring practices, educational opportunities, law enforcement, and even everyday interactions. When these norms are left unexamined, they perpetuate systemic racism and inequality, reinforcing power structures that disproportionately affect marginalized communities. The same can be said for sexual orientation norms that often exclude or silence LGBTQ individuals. Society's rigid understanding of what is normal in terms of love and identity makes it difficult for people to embrace who they truly are, often leading to discrimination, isolation, and harm. The harm of unchallenged norms also extends to the workplace, where outdated ideas of success and professionalism often stifle creativity, diversity, and innovation. In many corporate environments, the expectation is that employees should conform to certain behaviors or attitudes to be considered successful. This can include working long hours, prioritizing work over personal life, and displaying unquestioning loyalty to the company. These norms create toxic work environments where employees feel undervalued, overworked, and disconnected from their authentic selves. Furthermore, these expectations often prevent individuals from introducing fresh ideas or questioning inefficient systems, stifling growth and progress. The harm is not just in the individual suffering, it's in the collective loss of creativity and potential. The danger of unchallenged norms also lies in the fact that they breed complacency. When everyone agrees to follow the same patterns of behavior without questioning them, we begin to accept injustices as part of the fabric of life. We stop seeing the things that need to be changed because we are so accustomed to them. The harmful consequences of these norms become normalized, and the individuals or groups affected by them are expected to simply adapt rather than challenge the system. This is why breaking free from unchallenged norms requires conscious effort, both individually and collectively. It requires a willingness to question the status quo and to ask uncomfortable, difficult questions about why things are the way they are. Challenging these norms isn't easy. It takes courage, resilience, and a deep commitment to justice. But the rewards are profound. When we start to examine and dismantle harmful norms, we make room for new ways of thinking, being, and relating to one another. We create more inclusive, equitable spaces where people are free to express their true selves without fear of judgment or punishment. We open the door to new ideas, different perspectives, and innovative solutions that have the potential to create a better, more compassionate world for everyone. The harm of unchallenged norms is subtle but powerful. It infiltrates our homes, our workplaces, and our communities, shaping the way we see ourselves and others. But when we have the courage to challenge these norms, we take the first step toward creating a more inclusive and authentic society. The real strength lies not in following the rules blindly, but in the ability to question and reimagine the world we live in. Setting boundaries is an essential part of healthy relationships, personal growth, and emotional well-being. However, many of us struggle with setting boundaries because we fear rejection, conflict, or the possibility of hurting others' feelings. For some, setting boundaries feels selfish or uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to believe that saying no or asserting our needs is inconsiderate or rude. But the truth is, setting boundaries with compassion is one of the most loving, respectful, and essential actions we can take both for ourselves and for those we care about. When we set boundaries, we are not putting up walls to shut others out. We are establishing clear guidelines that protect our emotional, physical, and mental well-being. Boundaries are not about keeping people away or being rigid. They are about creating a safe space where we can show up as our authentic selves without fear of being overwhelmed, manipulated, or drained. Setting boundaries with compassion means respecting our own needs while also considering the feelings and perspectives of others. It's a balance of self-care and empathy that fosters respect, trust, and deeper connection. Compassionate boundary setting begins with understanding and honoring our own needs. It requires us to be in touch with what we value, what we need, and what we're willing to accept from others. This process involves self-awareness, a deep understanding of our emotional landscape, and the courage to express our feelings openly. Without clear boundaries, we are left to navigate the world without a sense of protection or self-respect, often feeling depleted or resentful when others overstep our limits. Setting boundaries with compassion involves recognizing that our needs are valid, that our feelings matter, and that it's okay to assert our limits when they are being tested. The fear of hurting others is one of the main reasons people struggle with boundary setting. We fear that saying no will lead to conflict, disappointment, or alienation. However, when we don't set boundaries, we are often enabling behavior that is disrespectful or draining. Over time, this leads to resentment, burnout, and a breakdown in trust. By setting clear and compassionate boundaries, we are teaching others how to treat us. Compassionate boundary setting means expressing our needs in a way that is respectful and kind rather than aggressive or defensive. It means choosing to have difficult conversations with empathy, where we acknowledge the other person's feelings while also prioritizing our own. One important aspect of setting boundaries with compassion is the way we communicate them. How we say something is just as important as what we say. Compassionate communication involves being clear, calm, and direct without being harsh. Instead of using language that sounds accusatory or confrontational, we can approach the conversation with a mindset of understanding. For example, instead of saying, "You're always taking advantage of me," we might say, "I've noticed that I've been feeling overwhelmed lately when I take on additional tasks and I need to set some limits to take care of myself." This approach is not only more respectful, but also opens the door for mutual understanding and collaboration. Boundaries are not just about protecting our energy or time, they are also about maintaining our sense of identity. When we fail to set boundaries, we risk losing sight of who we are and what we value. We can become so absorbed in the needs and expectations of others that we forget to check in with ourselves. Compassionate boundary setting means recognizing that we have the right to prioritize our own well-being without feeling guilty or selfish. It's about reclaiming our time, our emotions, and our space so that we can show up as the best version of ourselves in all areas of our lives. One key to setting boundaries with compassion is flexibility. Boundaries are not static, they can evolve based on the situation and the people involved. Sometimes we may need to adjust our boundaries based on our circumstances, but this should always be done with self-awareness and intentionality. Compassionate boundaries are not about rigidly protecting ourselves from every potential threat, they are about creating a framework in which we can navigate relationships with clarity and integrity. We can choose to be flexible, but only if it aligns with our values and needs at the time. Setting boundaries also involves the willingness to enforce them, which can be the most challenging aspect. If someone repeatedly disrespects our boundaries, it's important to hold firm and reinforce the limits we've set. Our compassionate boundary setting means being consistent, but also recognizing when it's time to let go of relationships or situations that are no longer serving us. It's an act of self-respect to walk away from environments that are toxic or draining, even if it means disappointing others. Ultimately, setting boundaries with compassion is a gift not just to ourselves, but to others as well. It creates a healthier dynamic in our relationships where both parties can feel heard, respected, and valued. It allows us to show up authentically without compromising our emotional well-being, and it encourages others to respect our limits. Compassionate boundary setting empowers us to take ownership of our lives, our emotions, and our relationships, fostering deeper connections based on mutual respect and understanding. When we set boundaries with compassion, we create a world where both our needs and the needs of others can coexist harmoniously. Embracing imperfection in relationships is a crucial step toward building deep, authentic, and resilient connections. In a society that often glorifies perfection, whether it's in our appearance, achievements, or how we present ourselves to others, it's easy to fall into the trap of expecting flawless interactions in our personal relationships. However, this expectation can lead to disappointment, frustration, and a sense of disconnection. True intimacy and love are not found in the pursuit of perfection, but in the willingness to embrace imperfection, both in ourselves and in others. At the core of embracing imperfection in relationships is the recognition that we are all human. We all have flaws, make mistakes, and have moments of vulnerability. This is what makes us real and relatable. When we allow ourselves and others to show up as imperfect beings, we create a space where authenticity can flourish. In relationships, it's easy to get caught up in the idealized version of what we think things should be, but this only sets us up for failure. Imperfection allows us to bring our true selves into the relationship, warts and all, without the fear of judgment or rejection. One of the most powerful aspects of embracing imperfection is the opportunity it provides for growth. Relationships, by their very nature, are dynamic and constantly evolving. We are never the same person we were a year ago, or even a week ago. Our experiences, challenges, and triumphs shape who we are. When we accept that growth and change are part of the human experience, we can approach our relationships with a sense of patience and understanding. Rather than demanding that our partner, friend, or family member meet certain expectations of perfection, we can focus on the process of mutual growth and support. Embracing imperfection also means letting go of the need to control every aspect of the relationship. It's easy to fall into the trap of trying to mold others into a version of themselves that aligns with our ideals. We may focus on their flaws, hoping that if they change, the relationship will improve. However, this approach leads to frustration and resentment. It places unrealistic demands on the other person and ignores the fact that they too are learning and evolving. When we embrace imperfection, we learn to accept our partners as they are, not as we want them to be. This shift in perspective fosters compassion, respect, and deeper connection. Another crucial aspect of embracing imperfection in relationships is learning to forgive not only others but ourselves. When we accept that no one is perfect, we are more likely to extend grace to others when they make mistakes. Similarly, we must practice self-compassion when we falter or fall short of our own expectations. Holding ourselves to impossible standards often leads to self-criticism and feelings of inadequacy, which can erode our confidence and hinder the growth of our relationships. Embracing imperfection means releasing the burden of unrealistic expectations and allowing ourselves and others the space to learn, grow, and make amends. In relationships, conflict is inevitable. Disagreements, misunderstandings, and differences in opinion are a natural part of any connection. The key is how we navigate these moments. Rather than striving for perfect harmony or avoiding conflict altogether, we can embrace imperfection by being open and honest about our feelings. Vulnerability is essential in this process. When we express our needs, frustrations, and desires in an authentic and compassionate way, we create the foundation for resolution and healing. In doing so, we allow the relationship to grow stronger, learning from each challenge and using it as an opportunity to deepen our understanding of each other. Embracing imperfection also means recognizing that relationships require effort and investment, but that effort doesn't need to be perfect. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the idea that we must always be on or that we need to maintain a flawless connection with others. However, in reality, relationships are built through small, everyday acts of kindness, vulnerability, and support. These actions may not always be grand or perfect, but they carry immense value in their consistency and sincerity. It's in these imperfect moments of showing up for each other despite our flaws and shortcomings that relationships flourish. Lastly, embracing imperfection in relationships fosters a sense of acceptance and unconditional love. We all want to feel loved and valued for who we truly are, not for an idealized version of ourselves. When we embrace imperfection, we show others that they are worthy of love and belonging, even in their brokenness or vulnerability. This creates a culture of acceptance where both parties can relax into the relationship without fear of judgment. It builds a deep, resilient bond based on mutual understanding and the belief that we are enough exactly as we are. In conclusion, embracing imperfection in relationships is about letting go of unrealistic standards and expectations. It's about creating space for growth, forgiveness, and compassion. By accepting ourselves and others as imperfect beings, we open the door to deeper, more meaningful connections that are grounded in authenticity and mutual respect. Relationships are not about achieving perfection, they are about showing up with love, vulnerability, and a willingness to learn and grow together. When we embrace imperfection, we create relationships that are rich, fulfilling, and enduring. Leadership is often seen through the lens of power, authority, and decision-making skills, but true leadership goes far beyond these aspects. At its core, the courage to lead with love and integrity is what sets great leaders apart from the rest. Leading with love doesn't mean being overly sentimental or indulgent. It means leading with a deep care and respect for others, recognizing their inherent worth and fostering an environment of trust, collaboration, and mutual respect. Integrity, on the other hand, is the unwavering commitment to honesty, fairness, and doing what is right, even when no one is watching. The courage to lead with love and integrity requires vulnerability, resilience, and the willingness to be both accountable and compassionate. When we think about leadership, it's easy to focus on achieving goals, driving results, or maintaining control. However, effective leadership is grounded in the way a leader makes others feel. Great leaders inspire those around them by showing genuine care for their well-being, helping them grow, and creating a sense of purpose and belonging. Love, in the context of leadership, is not about being overly soft or accommodating. It is about making decisions that consider the best interests of individuals in the collective group. It's about cultivating a culture where people feel valued, understood, and empowered to contribute their best selves. Leading with love also means being emotionally intelligent, recognizing and validating the emotions of others, offering support when needed, and creating a space where people feel safe to express their thoughts, ideas, and concerns. When a leader leads with love, they prioritize relationships over results and people over tasks. They understand that a healthy and happy team is a productive team. These leaders don't simply give orders, they engage with their teams, actively listen, and work together to solve problems and achieve common goals. In this way, leading with love fosters an environment where creativity, innovation, and collaboration can thrive. However, love alone is not enough to be an effective leader. Integrity is the cornerstone of leadership as it provides the moral compass that guides decisions and actions. Integrity means acting in alignment with your values and principles, even when it is challenging or inconvenient. It is the courage to make difficult decisions that may not be popular but are ultimately the right ones. Leaders who operate with integrity build trust, not only through their words but through their actions. Trust is the foundation of any successful team, and when leaders consistently demonstrate integrity, they create an atmosphere where others feel confident in their leadership and direction. The courage to lead with integrity also means standing up for what is right even in the face of adversity. This could involve making a tough decision that goes against the grain of the organization or challenging unethical practices that undermine the trust and values of the team. Integrity requires leaders to be transparent, admit mistakes, and take responsibility for their actions. Rather than shifting blame or protecting their image, leaders with integrity own their actions and seek to correct course when necessary. This level of honesty builds respect, loyalty, and admiration from others. Moreover, leading with love and integrity requires a high degree of self-awareness and self-reflection. Leaders must be in tune with their own values, weaknesses, and emotions. They must be willing to confront their own biases and blind spots and take responsibility for their personal growth. This self-awareness helps them make decisions that align with their principles, even when faced with challenges or pressure to conform to external expectations. It also enables them to lead with authenticity, as they are not trying to be someone they are not. A leadership rooted in authenticity resonates with others because it fosters trust and respect. People are more likely to follow someone who is genuine and consistent in their beliefs and actions. Leading with love and integrity also involves a deep commitment to others' growth and well-being. Great leaders inspire their teams by investing in their personal and professional development. They act as mentors, coaches, and role models, showing others the way through their actions and words. They challenge people to be better, to reach higher, and to achieve more, but they do so with encouragement and support. This commitment to developing others is an integral part of leadership that fosters loyalty and dedication. Finally, the courage to lead with love and integrity requires resilience. Leadership is often fraught with difficulties, setbacks, and opposition. There will be times when it feels easier to take shortcuts, compromise values, or prioritize results over people. However, leaders who remain true to their principles in these moments inspire trust and admiration. They show that integrity and love are not situational, they are enduring qualities that define who they are as leaders. Resilience in the face of challenges allows these leaders to continue modeling love and integrity even in tough times. In conclusion, the courage to lead with love and integrity is not a passive trait, but an active choice that requires vulnerability, self-awareness, and a strong commitment to others. It's about creating environments where people feel valued, supported, and encouraged to grow. It's about making tough decisions, acting with honesty, and standing firm in your values, even when it's difficult. When leaders lead with love and integrity, they foster trust, loyalty, and a sense of purpose that drives success and fulfillment. Ultimately, this form of leadership creates lasting positive change, not just in teams or organizations, but in the hearts and minds of the people they lead.